senior nuggets, more like a senior loser. Ooh. Hey, Mom.
Hey, what you doing?
Nothing. Why?
There's no kids here, so I thought maybe you just want to go home.
Yeah, that sounds good to me.
Okay. Hey guys, welcome to my studio. We cleaned it up. It's an art studio, so it's usually a crazy mess with an explosion of art supplies and camera equipment. But today we got it all cleaned up so that you could come and join me and sit, and we'll do a little bit of a Bible lesson today. Because it's Wednesday, and those are my favorite days. I wish I could see your faces. Maybe we'll Zoom later. I don't know. We'll see. So let's kind of recap over what we've been talking about the past few weeks. Our focus has been prayer, and we've really been looking at Psalms. Week 1, we talked about reading through multiple times, reading one chapter 2 to 3 times, and then maybe listening to it, and then, processing it in that way. Our second week, we talked about imaginative prayer, where we really try to place ourselves in the situation of whatever scripture we're reading and think through, what does it look like? What would it smell like? We talked about Psalm 23, and it was about pastures and cool streams. And so, what would it be like to sit by that calm stream? And, was it spring? Was it fall? Anyway, so we thought through scripture in kind of a different way than we usually do. And this week we're going to be talking about writing scripture out. Now, there's a lot of benefits to writing scripture out. It helps us to memorize things a lot quicker. It also helps us to process and understand things in a way that is different than just reading or just listening to scripture. It involves different parts of our brain, and so we get different benefits from it. It's kind of why they're always saying take notes when you're in school or when we're in a church service. Why that's encouraged is because the act of writing things out makes a difference in how we retain, process, and understand information. It's kind of a really fantastic tool. One person that was really great with this tool was David. David was this guy who wrote a ton of Psalms, and actually those Psalms are his prayers that he wrote out. A lot of times we sing them now, or we just kind of read through them and we're like, yeah, that's the Psalms. But each one of those, not all of them were written by David, but many were. Now each one of those was like a little piece of his day or his life. It's like a journal of his relationship with God. And he was considered the man after God's heart. He wasn't always perfect. He had great moments, and then he had huge failures. But in all of those things, he was chasing God and doing his best to know God and know what God wanted from him. And so I kind of just am in love with all of the Psalms right now. And I relate so much to a lot of these because you could see through his prayers. Some days he was having a really great day and he was like, oh Lord, how majestic is your name. Your love is steadfast and endures forever. It is so good, Lord. You are so great. And then you go 1 chapter, 2 chapters later, and he's just like, why? Like, God, I just don't get it. Why? Everything seems to be against me. I'm having a terrible, no good, bad day. And Lord, I just need to know that you are still there, that you still care about me. You get to see David's struggle. And I kind of love that. Not that he would struggle, but that it was okay that he could take it to God and just be like, why? Because especially right now, where we are in our world, where there is so much sickness and everything is changing, one day everything's fine and y'all are going to school and I'm going to work and church is, it's just your normal every day and everyone's healthy. And then it seems like out of nowhere, everybody's sick and you can't go to school. You can't go to the movie theater. We're stuck in an art studio trying to do a Wednesday lesson. I miss church, y'all. I miss seeing y'all on a Wednesday. I miss Twileen cooking us food. The whole thing, I miss my church family. We're made for community. And so this whole isolation thing just is not my jam. But I get it. We need to be healthy. And so we're just going to kind of tough through it. And hopefully we'll come out on the other end and be okay. Super looking forward to the first Wednesday that we can meet together again. So back to this. David was having one of these days in this chapter that we're going to read today. Now, part of what we're going to talk about, I want you to do two things for me. I want you to write out this chapter. It's not even a long one. There's only 6 verses in it. It's Psalm chapter 13. I'm going to ask you to write this one out. And then I'm also going to ask you to write out your prayer to God today. And in fact, if you look in our app, we're going to have a psalm for you to write every day this week. And I'm going to encourage you to write out your own prayer for this day on like a journal or just sticky notes. It doesn't even matter. Just that you're writing something out, kind of recording your time. What are your prayers to God throughout this week, throughout this time that is just kind of crazy? The whole thing is just kind of crazy. Anyways, David is in one of these crazy times as well. And he's just kind of struggling. But why I like this particular one so much is there's a twist at the end. It starts off at the beginning and he's pretty bitter. He just doesn't get it. He doesn't get the situation that he is in, and he's going to God. I love that he was so confident in his relationship with God that he could just go and say, hey, I do not like this. This is not working for me. And so, God always wants us to come to him and just be real. He's not looking for us to wear a mask and be like, oh yeah, thanks God for this pandemic. That's super. He gets it. When Lazarus died, he wept. He gets that, it is painful here. Not everything is perfect. And so the fact that he is a God that cares enough that we can go to him and be like, hey, this stinks. And he'll listen. That to me is huge. And so I love that in this moment that David is going and he's saying, hey, I don't like this. But then in those last 2 verses, that's a part that really sticks out to me. So I'm going to read this for us real quick. And so just kind of follow along with me. In fact, let me scoot over. Okay. So I'm going to try to put my written out version over here for you guys. All right. So Psalm 13, It's called How Long, O Lord? How long, O Lord, will you forget me forever? How long will you hide your face from me? How long must I take counsel in my soul and have sorrow in my heart all the day? How long shall my enemy be exalted over me? Consider and answer me, O Lord my God. Light up my eyes, lest I sleep the sleep of death. Lest my enemy say, I have prevailed over him. Lest my foes rejoice, because I am shaken. And here's the good part. But I have trusted in your steadfast love. My heart shall rejoice in your salvation. I will sing to the Lord, because he has dealt bountifully with me. In those last two verses, he kind of brings it back. The first 4 verses, woe is me. This stinks. Everything is against me. But in those last 2, he brings it back to God. I trust you. Know that you love me. Even though I'm shaken, even though I'm broken, I'm still going to sing to you. Because you are a God that loves me, and you are a God that is so very worthy of my love, of my praise, and of my song. And so that's how we need to be focused on this time. No, not everything is great. School is not happening. And there's a million questions that go along with that. What about prom? And what about graduation? And what about this and this and this, and plays and concerts and games and all these things that we're not going to get to do? But in the end, we have a God that loves us. No matter what kind of suffering is going on in our world, we have a God that cares. And that's huge. That is comforting to me. No matter how big I mess up, I have a God that loves me. No matter how bad the world is messed up, I have a God that loves me, wants to talk to me about it. And so this week, spend a little time with that God that cares, that loves you, and wants to hear how your day was, even though he already knows. Thanks, guys. See you next week.